Very good morning to all of you friends. Today we are going to study about tissues. Now in our previous note we have started with plant tissues. Okay, tissues are a group of cells which have similar structure, similar function and similar origin. Now the whole plant body is actually made up of number of tissues. So right now we are doing plant tissue. Now in the previous note we have read about the classification of tissues. Okay, classification of plant tissues. So different types of plant tissues. So we have two broadly classified tissues, that is meristematic and permanent tissue. So now this meristematic tissues, we have read that they are made up of apical meristem, they are of lateral meristem and intercalary meristematic tissue. So meristematic tissues are of three types that we have already read. Now these meristematic tissues, they have the power of cell division. So they are present in the growing tips, like in a diagram that I have given you in the last note. So these apical meristematic tissues, these are intercalary and these are lateral meristematic tissues also in the root. So meristematic tissues are such kind of tissues which have the power of cell division and they are present in the tips, root or shoot tips of the plants. Now if I show you the diagram of meristematic tissue, you will see that meristematic tissues are basically like this in structure. That means they have the power of cell division and they are made up of some very thin cells, okay, hexagonal cells. They have nucleus in them and cytoplasm is present and vacuoles are absent because they have the power of cell division. So they help in division of the cells. So they are present in the growing tips. But today we will study about permanent tissue, that means those tissues which are formed from meristematic tissues and which have lost their capacity of cell division. That means permanent tissues are such type of plant tissues which are formed from or differentiated from meristematic tissue and they do not have the power of cell division. That means they have become permanent in the different bodies or parts of the plant. So permanent tissues do not have the capacity to divide and they are differentiated or formed from meristematic tissues. Okay, so this process is called differentiation. Differentiation means the process by which meristematic tissues are transformed to form permanent tissues and they lose their power of cell division. Now these permanent tissues are again of two types, simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissues, they are made up of only one type of cell. So only one type of cell is present, if round or if hexagonal or cuboidal or elongated. So they are made up of only one type of cell. So simple permanent tissue. Whereas complex permanent tissue, they are made up of different types of cells. For example, xylem is a type of complex permanent tissue. Phloem is also a type of complex permanent tissue. That means xylem is made up of different types of elements like xylem parenchyma, like tracheids, like trachea, that means vessels, and xylem fibers. So similarly, phloem is also made up of phloem parenchyma, phloem fiber, companion cells, seep tubes, seep tails, cells, etc. So when the tissue, permanent tissue, is made up of a number of different types of tissues, then we call them to be complex permanent tissue. So that is the difference between simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Again, simple permanent tissue, they are made up of different types. There are different types in the plant's body, that is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Okay, so parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma, these are the three types of simple permanent plant tissue. Okay, so in this video today we will study about parenchyma only. Again, parenchyma is made up of arenchyma and collenchyma types of tissues. So again, parenchyma is of two different types, that is arenchyma and chlorenchyma. So chlorenchyma is different from collenchyma. So today we will study about plant tissue, we will study about permanent tissue, then simple permanent tissue, then the first one, that is parenchyma. Parenchyma is again of two types, that is arenchyma and chlorenchyma. Okay, so now you know that permanent tissues are those tissues which are formed from meristematic tissues and they have lost their power of cell division. Okay, so what is their function? Their function is basically they help in storage of substances or they help in mechanical support or conduction, like xylem phloem helps in conduction of substances, or they help in photosynthesis or storage of certain proteins or starch granules, etc. Okay, now this permanent tissue is of simple and complex type. Simple means those tissues which are made up of only one type of tissue. Again, simple permanent tissue is of three types: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Now parenchyma tissues, they are basically concerned with mechanical support. Okay, so they are present in different parts of the plant body, soft part, that means soft tissues, in which little bit of cell division is still retained. Okay, they are not fully transformed, but in some cases like tender leaves or tender stems, little bit of cell division is possible. So parenchyma is basically present in the soft and tender parts of the plants. Now this parenchyma is again of two types, that is aerenchyma. Aeren means they have air cavities in them, by the help of which they provide buoyancy. Buoyancy means floating capacity to the tissues. Like in case of lotus leaves or the flower, you are seeing those flowers or the leaves, they have air spaces in between the tissue, so they keep floating on the surface of water. So aerenchyma. Okay, in example are aquatic plants. And chlorenchyma are such type of parenchyma tissues which have chlorophyll in them, so they help in photosynthesis. Okay, so parenchyma is of two types: aerenchyma and chlorenchyma. So in this video we will see that permanent tissue is the first type, that is parenchyma. Now this is the diagram of parenchyma tissues. That means they are very very thin. They have, see, thin cell wall which is made up of cellulose. Definitely these are the nucleus. Okay, and then you can see some vacuoles are also present, some yellow colored vacuoles are also present here, and they have intercellular spaces in between them. So these are the characteristics of parenchyma tissue. Okay, where are they present? They are present in the soft part of the plants. What is the function of parenchyma? They provide mechanical support and they give flexibility to the tissues. Okay, support to the plant, and in some places they also help in storage of food and nutrients. Okay, now these are the two types. If the question comes, parenchyma is of two types, what are they? You will write aerenchyma as well as chlorenchyma. Now let me show you one more diagram, that is the microscopic diagram of parenchyma. Just now you saw meristematic tissue. This is the meristematic tissue once again. So these tissues are different because they have the power of cell division. See here, intercellular spaces are not present. These are the nucleus. Okay, they are hexagonal in nature, and intercellular spaces are not present. Cytoplasm is present. Vacuoles are again not present. Okay, so these are present in the growing tips. Whereas this is the diagram of parenchyma tissues. Parenchyma, you can see, thin walled, they have intercellular spaces, cytoplasm, dense cytoplasm is present. Okay, vacuoles are also present, and these are the nucleus. So that is the difference between meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. So meristematic tissue, they are present in the tips, okay, like the root apex or the shoot apex, but permanent tissue are present in other parts of the plant, either to give mechanical support or help in storage or help in photosynthesis or to give buoyancy to the plants, etc. Okay, so I will upload this note. You will write the whole page in your classwork copies, and once again you have to study about the classification of the plant tissue. So in the plant tissue, once again please learn this properly. So plant tissue, they are of two types, meristematic and permanent. Permanent tissues are again of two types, simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissues are of three types, that is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Complex permanent tissue are of two types, that is xylem and phloem. Again, parenchyma is of two types, that is aerenchyma and chlorenchyma. So this is called classification of plant tissues. Okay, and you should also know the difference between meristematic tissue and permanent tissue, difference between simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue, and the difference between three types of meristematic tissue, that is apical, lateral and intercalary. Okay, so we will study about their characteristics, their locations and their functions. Thank you so much for watching this video.